Well, hello, and welcome to another Virtual Legality live stream. It's question time, April 2022, and I've already seen in chat there have been apparently a few issues with some of the transitions between various of the ways to support the channel. I apologize for that. I will also say that I'm apologetic to when I wound up getting the call for questions out as a post, because that was yesterday morning, which I find to be a little bit unfair to those who are so generous in their support of the channel. So I'm going to be looking to potentially doing more live streams in general, because one of the things that's happened over the past month is that a number of folks have asked me to do that, to make myself more available on live stream, to answer questions, to have those kinds of conversations. So I'm going to look into possibly doing that. One of the reasons Virtual Legality is structured the way that it is, of course, is because it needs to fit around what I'm otherwise doing in the practice of law and running a law firm, in business development and other aspects of all of that, and more boring aspects like making sure the printer works and paying bills and things of that nature. But I have heard you. I know a number of folks want to have more of these experiences. So I am looking at potentially changing the tiers up, letting everybody ask questions as much as they want in these kinds of spaces, and figuring out what could be something like a weekly show or something like that, that I would be out there more on a live streaming basis. If any of that interests you, let me know in the comments what you think that might look like, what you might be interested in watching. Honestly, I haven't actually run down what that might be, so I'm always interested in feedback, and I do apologize to those in chat who have generously supported us, especially on Utreon. We're working out a few kinks there because it is a newer platform, because their buttons are differently placed than they are on Patreon, etc., etc. So if you didn't see that post, I'm very apologetic. If you ask me a question here, I will try to answer it to the best of my ability. As I've said in prior question time streams, absolutely flag me with an @Hoeg Law. I will see that. Otherwise, have your conversations. Super chats, of course, always welcome. Please don't feel obligated to do that. But if I can see it, I will try to answer it. And hopefully we'll have a nice, light little day today in terms of question time, because, and I blame myself for this, the question request went out so late. We didn't actually get any questions from Utreon or Patreon. We're going to work through those things, but I am going to be looking to potentially do an extra show in May, so my apologies there. Outside of that, happy to answer questions, to have conversations with you all. These streams right now are made possible by supporters at Utreon, at Patreon, that really help make all of this possible, help justify me not doing client development or otherwise operating in the firm for more and more extended periods of my life and my time. And I could not be more thankful for all of that generosity of support, all the well wishes, all the nice things that people say so often. So I very much appreciate that. And if you are interested in supporting the channel, that's how you do it. Utreon, Patreon, you can see them, hopefully, if I did things right, linked in the description to this video. If it's not for some reason in this video, it will be in prior videos that you can go and check out those links. But I very much appreciate it. So with that being said, as I mentioned, we don't actually have any supporter questions today. So I'm going to be looking to chat, to talk to you all, answer some questions, potentially change up the formatting here a little bit. And we might be changing up the formatting of the live streams in any event, because if you have been following me, you know that I have spent an inordinate amount of time on a sister legal channel, Legal Bites, covering the Johnny Depp Amber Heard trial this month. It's always very important to me to support good people that are reaching for their dreams, and Alita over at Legal Bites is one of those people. I could not be happier to see her go from something like 50,000 subscribers to 150,000 subscribers in the 3 weeks that I've been wingman to get subscribers over to her channel. If you haven't seen that and you've been missing me, come on over. We're live streaming that for, I think, another 3 weeks at least. So please do check that out. But in so doing, she uses a program called StreamYard, which I've used a little bit, and might be a better way to do these specific kinds of streams rather than my Virtual Legality format. So I'm looking into that as well. If you've got thoughts, again, leave a comment. Leave a comment here if I see it. Otherwise, leave a comment to the video. And now let's look at some chat questions, because I see some @Hoeg Laws. That's awesome. That's what flags it for me. I'll try to go back to the beginning. Here's Jason, who does support the channel, saying, hey, I didn't make a post on Utreon. I did, but there might be something wrong with the way it's appearing. I can see it on my end. I'm going to look into that after the stream. Again, I am so sorry about that. Jason, again, at Hoeg Law, you mentioned EU regulators in your series about the Twitter acquisition, which is a perfect time to transition to my Twitter page. High production values here in virtual legality, folks. If Twitter had no physical presence there, which they probably might, servers, what could Euro regulators do? Well, that's an interesting question, right? Because if you go and you take an international law class at law school, one of the very first things they will teach you is that international law is like a very sophisticated fiction agreement between parties that can fold at any time. So when you talk about jurisdiction, they can do things like, yeah, if they've got physical servers, they could do things to those with the jurisdictional powers that they have, but also just operating in a jurisdiction, right? So Twitter, regardless of whether it has servers, is going to have users in the EU. It's going to have people that interact with that platform, and you can suspend operation. You can say you're not allowed to operate in this space. Now, most of the Western democracies are a little bit less likely to do that than perhaps like China, which does ban apps and software regularly from interacting with its populace. But if these companies were to not abide by an EU regulation, there's a number of things, a number of levers that they can pull, a number of buttons that they can press to try to make, at bare minimum, life difficult for them. And if life's difficult for them and they can't operate in a major portion of the world, they might seek to otherwise make their program better for whatever those regulators might want. You're seeing that a little bit with Android and Apple right now, where EU regulators just passed a series of regulations that would open up things very similar to what Epic and the Coalition for App Fairness has requested of them. We will see what happens there. It's a very interesting question because Apple and Google don't like them, and they might try their own leverage. Certainly, they'll look at litigation and whether or not the EU regulators have the authority to do that. They'll look at jurisdiction. They'll look at those kinds of things. These are novel questions that really haven't been answered and have a lot of money at stake. So the EU regulators probably going to fight pretty hard. I would expect Apple and Android to fight pretty hard. Same would go for Twitter if something like that were to happen. But if you want a more specific answer to that question, you probably would have to seek local EU counsel or UK counsel that would have certain thoughts on its own jurisdictional powers and what it can and can't do. But overall, if you're touching something broadly on a global basis, if you've got operators that do use your service in different places, chances are a regulatory authority can come in and ask for things at bare minimum. Thank you so much for the question. And you have a follow-up. I pondered this back when GDPR was the new hotness over there, but U.S. companies were apparently trying to comply. Yeah, so GDPR, which is its own interesting thing because it's not proven to be as effective or useful as I think anybody was anticipating, but it does cost a lot to comply with. There's a whole host of things and white papers and symposia that you can look at to see how GDPR is working, because this EU regulation I was just mentioning, the open markets type stuff, is of a similar kind of strain and size and potential change that has been ordered for the internet in general. We'll see how that works out. We'll see if GDPR and the compliance there changes how companies can choose to comply with that moving forward. Let's see. I'm going to the next at Hoeg Law. So if you're asking me questions without that, I apologize. At Hoeg Law, what is your law specialty? Well, thank you for asking. For the most part, I do business law. I don't do litigation. I don't do disputes, really. I have litigators that are my friends and colleagues that I've worked with over the past, God, how long have I been doing this? 17 years. Whew. That's hard to believe. And I send them to those various colleagues when we get into litigation or when there's a third party that needs to be interacted with, whether that's a federal regulator, whether that's the USPTO. Law is really specialized into all of these various buckets. But for what I do, I try to be a more general corporate quarterback, right? I bring in folks that are starting companies. I help them decide whether they're going to make an LLC or a corporation, what that should look like, how people are going to have their capital recorded, what contracts they're going to enter into. I'm going to help negotiate those, draft what they want going out, and reviewing and helping negotiate what's coming in, advising them on things like financing, whether they should do it via equity or how they're going to incentivize their employees, all the way really through maturing the company, hiring more executives, and I do exits as well. So my training is venture capital, private equity, funding things at an early stage, tech primarily, working with those companies to get them up and running, and then doing exits. So having people buy them out, doing that mergers and acquisitions work. So I like to think I'm soup to nuts on this kind of stuff, but certainly there's a lot of regulatory things and details that I do have a network of referral colleagues that I use all the time to send people to that specific specialty. But for me, I help businesses get formed and financed and hopefully out so that their founders can be drinking Mai Tais on a beach somewhere. And we do have some of those success stories as well. Thank you for asking. Salute, Hoeg Law. Not a question, but I appreciate it. Salute to you as well. No questions. Just want to say thanks for all your hard work. Keep up the great videos. I appreciate it. Thank you so much. Yeah, this month has been crazy. Getting out 6 videos this week while doing, I think, 40 plus hours of streaming at Legal Bytes, which you should check out. I will add that link to the description of this video so you guys can pop in and ask video game questions where nobody on the panel will understand them except me. Gecko Gamer, who supports the channel regularly, is already doing that over there, putting in super chats over at Legal Bytes Media that I have to explain. I love it because everybody goes, what does that mean? And that's fantastic. So please do pop in if you're interested in it all. Even though it's salacious, even though it's a celebrity trial, there's a lot of interesting things that pop out of it. How defamation works, how defamation by implication works, various aspects of legal learning that I think are very fun to kind of go through. So please do pop in. Here's somebody putting up the video game controllers. This is how the folks over at that channel have decided to recognize me when I pop up as the video game controllers. Illuminati Mafia at Hoeg Law. What do you think about the situation with Quantum TV? I have to be honest, I haven't researched it too far. A lot of people have asked me to cover it. And I've had so much on my plate and so many things that I thought were just fundamentally more interesting and that I could offer my expertise a little bit better to with Elon Musk's takeover of Twitter, with other things that are happening that I haven't actually looked at it so fulsomely. But I will also say, you might have seen this in a couple of comments that I gave, I'm a little reluctant to dive too deeply into most YouTube drama type items. Now, I have been told that this is about fair use, copyright usage. It is on my list, but if I'm being entirely honest, it's like halfway down. So I don't know whether I will wind up covering it or not. But I am, of course, interested in those kinds of things. So I appreciate the question. I can't promise I will get to it. We will see where things come out. Because obviously I did 6 videos already this week, squeezing it in between a number of my other obligations. And so I'm one person, I can only get to what I get, but I do appreciate that a lot of people are interested in that story. So thank you. At Hoeg Law, did you watch Spidey's new video today? So Spidey is a behavioral analyst or body reader type person who's regularly appearing on that channel. I have not watched his newest video, but he's an interesting cat. If you're interested in that kind of thing, you should check him out. Certainly it'll be linked over there, but I'll take a look at it. Thank you for the question. At Hoeg Law, question, if Xbox buys a studio based out of the US, do they still have to go through regulators of other countries? Yes. If so, how is that determined? It's very similar to the earlier question. And since I'm mostly talking here, I don't know if these buttons will work. Hopefully I don't break this. Let's see if this works. Can I get it on? Oh, you're stuck with me in big form now. So if a company touches the jurisdiction of another party, you sell Xboxes into England, you sell them into Germany or France, then those regulators can have an interest in what that is. Most specifically, when you're talking about a merger acquisition like this one, when you're targeting something like Activision, it's going to be the actual nexus points between Activision and those countries that they're most concerned in. I believe, somebody can correct me if I'm wrong on this, I believe King is actually headquartered in the European Union, so that gives them a lot of interest in that particular question. And like I said at the top, if we're talking realpolitik, if we're talking about the political situation, an international jurisdiction can assert authority over anything. It's a question of whether or not you can fight it in their courts or whether or not you're going to ignore it and that kind of thing. I believe Microsoft has announced in its proxy statements to its shareholders that it intends to go through about 17 jurisdictions, but they identified the major ones that they're the most concerned with: the US, obviously, Japan, I believe, China, EU, and the United Kingdom, the UK. I think those are the ones that I remember the most from the list of major jurisdictional parties that they have to go through. And we'll see what happens. But ultimately, it's basically a raw assertion that those are the things that these companies need to worry about, that you're within that jurisdiction, and they're not going to fight over the U.S. and they're not going to fight over EU. Those are going to be the big ticket items that we see in all of these transactions. Do you think Xbox deal to acquire Activision will get approved? I'm more concerned after the Wall Street Journal. Do you mean Bloomberg? Did the Wall Street Journal talk about that? I know that the Bloomberg article went up, and I certainly did a video on that, which I still think is patently ridiculous. I know some of you came in there, and I take perhaps a bit more of a snarky tone in that video than I usually do on these things. But when you look at what they used as evidence, and then you have a report that comes out the next day that basically says the stock market index is down 9% in April, that anything remotely holding fast on the Activision price is effectively buoying what has been an intrinsic fall in what we can anticipate the value of a share of stock in Activision to be. I find that entire analysis by Bloomberg absurd. And that's not dragging authors into it. I know a number of you wanted to talk about the authors and their prior reporting. It's not even about that. It's about going out with an article like that in a very important financial, well-read outlet and just saying whatever the heck you like. I think it's even more forgivable here on YouTube, and I try so hard to research everything I say, to look at everything I talk about here, because I want to make the world a more informed place. That you go out there with something like that in a major outlet that's going to be read by many more people than my videos are going to be viewed by. Honestly, that kind of thing rubs me the wrong way. So, yes, I still think it's more likely than not that the deal goes through mostly intact. I continue to think that the FTC, based on its saber rattling, is going to ask for something like a consent decree that will at least do nominal things that Microsoft probably will be okay with. But when I say 70-30 or something like that, 30% is a significant chance of failure. That is a significant chance of having the deal be knocked down by what I would probably consider in this context overzealous regulators. But it's non-zero. It's well above zero. And so people should be concerned about that. But I still think it will go through. Thank you for the question. Let's see. Don't want to miss any here. Trying to do everything I can. And again, I apologize for not getting that question time request letter out earlier. Hoeg Law, can you please explain the $350,000 winnings limit for the Johnny Depp case? Surely they have both spent more than that in representation alone. Doesn't that make the whole trial a lose-lose financially? Okay, so I didn't say that there was a $350,000 limit. In fact, I wouldn't say that because it's not knowledge I have in my brain. But what I have heard from the other panelists, including some folks that actually litigate in Virginia, is that there's a $350,000 cap on punitive damages. So there's a difference between compensatory damages and punitive damages. So Johnny Depp's suing for $50 million of compensatory damages. He says, look, I straight up lost $50 million. I didn't get Pirates of the Caribbean 6. You can see the contract that says I would have gotten $35 million guaranteed, probably more, from actually being Jack Sparrow in Pirates of the Caribbean 6. And among other reasons, that's why I can say, because you did this thing, because you defamed me, this is his accusation, I should get $50 million in redress. And then if you want to punish her for what she did, I could potentially get $350,000 more. Punitive damages are punishing the party that lost. They aren't just compensation to make the party that won whole. That's the difference. That's why you can sue for those big numbers. But I don't know. I can't speak to whether there is a $350,000 cap. I can only tell you that that's what other panelists have said on that channel. So thank you very much. At Hoeg Law, please link the podcast for tomorrow. That should be in the links. So for those of you that don't know, I said this on the Legal Bites stream. We have a very, very special episode of the Seasoned Gaming Bitcast tomorrow, 11 a.m. Eastern on Sunday. And I think you've seen me talk about it a little bit in this space if you've been with me in Virtual Legality for a while, but it's a video gaming based commentary. I think we do a fantastic job. It has this kind of analytical approach that I love so much. Reasonable minds can differ, and we do quite often. But tomorrow is the 200th episode, and I haven't been a part of 200 episodes. Ains, who runs that channel, has put his heart, his soul, his blood, sweat, and tears into getting the thing up and running. And I'm basically trying to help him grow it even more, ostensibly with my presence, but probably more likely with my ability to get folks to actually check it out. So if you could check it out, 11 a.m. tomorrow. Should be a link in this description of the video. I will check it after I'm done with this live stream. I think it would mean the world to all of us, but especially to Ains, to just see an enormous number of people waiting to get in at that 11 a.m. live stream, watching potentially. Don't feel obligated to do it if it's not your cup of tea, but if you do love video games, if you don't know somebody that does, you come in there. Maybe we get a couple of thousand people concurrent on that kind of stream. I think you might see him break down. And I love supporting people that do good stuff, that put good works out there in the world, like Alita at Legal Bytes, like LawTube in general, like Ains at Seasoned Gaming Bitcast, like myself, a little selfish. I don't love tooting my own horn, but I think we do a damn good job over there. Please do pop in because it's the 200th episode. It's going to be a little bit special. We're going to have a bunch of guests. People are going to come in. It's going to be fantastic. I don't think he knows that I'm advertising in these various places, so I'd really love to surprise him with a big number there. So thank you so much for prompting me to say that kind of thing. Please do check it out if you're interested. And if you could help me surprise him, I would certainly really appreciate it. Let's see here. At Hoeg Law, can you explain what happens when regulators in some country authorize a transaction and others want to block it? For example, if US and Europe accept a deal but China refuses to allow it, well, it's hard, right? Lawyers hate hypotheticals because there's any number of different ways that could be constructed. You might want to ignore it at the end. You might want to work with China, look for a change in consent decree. And this isn't just China. I know you use China as your example, but it can be the case where the US allows it, China allows it, and then the EU says there's some big problem with it. And so they wind up causing issues. At that point in time, you have to evaluate exactly whether or not you want to fight it more, potentially bring a lawsuit in their own courts that they don't have the authority to do whatever it is that they're doing, etc. So I think that it's hard to answer just sitting out here from outside of everything. But I would say that if that happens, you still have to take it seriously and you have to evaluate what that market means to you, because chances are if you don't comply, you can get in trouble for selling into it, etc. Let's see here. I think I scrolled too far down, so I apologize for that. I apologize. Let's see what else we have here. I'm unfortunately unable to watch today's stream, but I wish to thank you for your continued deluge of content. Thank you. How likely is it that the FTC would allow the Microsoft ATVI, Activision acquisition, but an international regulatory agency would block it? What would be Microsoft's option if that were to occur? Okay, so a similar question to the one I just answered. I think that the EU traditionally, historically, has been more likely to regulate antitrust and anti-competition, especially in tech, maybe over the last few decades. So one of the possible scenarios is FTC doesn't do anything major and the EU asks for something major. At that point in time, you'd evaluate what they asked for. You'd evaluate what the proposed consent decree is. You'd evaluate whether or not the EU market was important enough. It is to figure out a way to comply and then go from there. They have to basically get everybody on board. And the other, whatever it is, 14 jurisdictions that they mentioned, unlikely to cause trouble. They'll just follow the tact of the bigger regulatory guns here. In all likelihood, you never know. But at that point in time, you'd have to really think about what you do and how you evaluate it. And apologies, my throat is going from a number of hours of streaming. Thank you for the question. At Hoeg Law, I was wondering about the bit about was this document prepared contemporaneously? What is it supposed to guard against? It's repeated almost every document. Okay, so we're back to Johnny Depp. If you haven't been following that, there's a series of foundational questions that the lawyers ask for any kind of document that is introduced in court. And it's effectively, was this made in the ordinary course of business? Was this made contemporaneously to the events in question, etc.? And what you're looking for is an understanding of how the document came to be and whether or not it's special at all, right? If the document was made because you knew you were getting sued 6 years after the events in question, then jurors should understand that. People that are evaluating its usefulness should understand that because it's less likely to be accurate, right? It's 6 years later. And I do apologize. Let's see here if I can. Man, we'll see. We might have to cut this short, and I'll feel even guiltier about this. But my throat has been well worn this particular week, and so you're trying to establish. Okay, if it's in the ordinary course of business, then you didn't do it for a special reason, which has a number of interesting impacts, right? Because maybe you took it, maybe you did an extra memo because you knew something was wrong, and that can mean something in and of itself. If it's contemporaneous, then you know it's more likely that one, somebody took account of the fact that whatever they're documenting is serious, and two, that their recollections are more likely to be useful because it's so close to the events in question and because it's not specifically for use in a lawsuit. Right? If it's not ordinary course and you make a memo to CYA because there's a lawsuit coming, that is something that you should be able to discount. So that's broad strokes there. We need to get the litigators on here. Maybe I'll do a question time with some law tubers I can get on that litigate more regularly. But that's the overall thesis of why you hear those foundational questions being asked. Let's see here. What else we got? Oh, we got a super chat that I wasn't told about, so I apologize there. None of the systems are working right now. Gio Rio for €5. Thank you so much. Very generous. Got to know you from Legal Bites. You are very nice in support of her. Alita is fantastic. Go support her yourselves. What are your favorite games, top 3 games you've played so far in 2022? Oh, my goodness. So I really enjoyed Horizon Forbidden West on the PlayStation. I thought they did a much better job than Horizon Zero Dawn, the original game, of setting a world up that was interesting to go through. That's very important to me when I play those kinds of games. So I really liked that. Man, this particular month, I feel very disconnected from my video games. I haven't played a ton of them. So what else have I been playing? This is a great question. All the stuff I've been playing recently is the stuff that you can turn your brain off to play. Right? So it's your Destinies, it's your Fortnites. I'm playing an RPG from a few years back that I go back to more than I would have thought, called Crosscode. Obviously didn't release this year, but I do love that game. And just kind of bopping in and checking things out on Game Pass on a fairly regular basis. But yeah, Horizon is the one that jumps out. I really like the Lego Skywalker Saga. That might be on my end of the year, Game of the Year list. I think they did a fantastic job of broadening out the Lego games framework. And I love Star Wars. So those combined really creates a wonderful situation. I've enjoyed playing it with my daughters, who I play regularly with in terms of video games. And hey, yesterday Nintendo released Nintendo Switch Sports, which is effectively just a revamp of Wii Sports and taking some of the best from Wii Sports Resort. But it's rad. It's a lot of fun. My daughter is obsessed with it. And we have played it a ton in the last 36 hours. So if you're interested in that kind of thing, I highly recommend it. I think it's even at a discount price. I think it was $40. So that's a lot of fun. And I will continue to have that percolate in my head, Gio Rio, because one, I really appreciate the super chat. So thank you so much for that. And two, I know there's more games that I played that I've reacted really positively to, but they are just escaping me here at the end of April. Sharon Hoeg, at Nifty Sparrow, you have a great question. Re-ask and tag Hoeg Law so he sees it. Oh, okay. Mystery. Thanks, honey. At Hoeg Law, the only person whose channel gave me the option to become a member is Emily Baker. Alita has members. Why is there no member button here? Is it because of Patreon? No, it isn't, actually. I think I'm like 3/4 of the way of getting a member button put into the channel, and what it required was a trailer, like a specific short length trailer that I remember at the time when I was going through that process. I was like, I don't have anything to do a trailer on. I wouldn't even know what to say. At this point, I could do it. I just haven't done that. And I actually don't know exactly what I would do. All of these different platforms have like different things and perks you can give to people. So I don't know what people want vis-a-vis those memberships. I have to evaluate that. And I mean to. I'm going to revamp the tiers because I want to do some different things and want to make sure people are getting value. Like that's the most important thing to me on any of that. So I'm looking into that. I will do a membership button. I do have a super thanks button for the VODs, the videos on demand, which people regularly use. That's so generous of them. And they just pop in and say thanks. I have super chats. Obviously, I just answered one. But yeah, I think Alita has membership. Emily has membership. It wouldn't surprise me if a number of other law tubers have membership, but I appreciate you flagging it for me, because no, it's nothing specific. It's just there's so many buttons to push. And frankly, I just have so many irons and fires and things, and I'm doing something on the channel or outside of it so often that I just haven't hit everything, and I know I know I should be. So I appreciate it. Does the U.S. government have to obey EU GDPR? The government, probably not. I mean, it has things that touch the internet as well, so there could be fights, but those are two sovereigns. They're at the same level, give or take. Or do we have to wait until an updated US-EU treaty is finalized? So I work for local government IT. I was curious about your experience in GDPR. All right, so you know better than me, to be honest with you. So I don't have any clients that are government, regulatory agencies or otherwise. So the US might well internally in its government structure be trying to broadly, basically comply with GDPR, which at its foundational levels is actually pretty simple. It's hey, what data are you collecting? What are you doing with it? Can people see it, and can people get rid of it? Massively streamlined for purposes of this conversation. But at a structural level, I can imagine many government agencies saying, all right, well, let's get some of that stuff in play and tell people about cookies and things like that. But the truth is they are both sovereign, so they could have a fist fight in the streets on that kind of thing. So a lot of it is what I call comity, COMITY, which is essentially just treating another sovereign or another level of government as friendly rather than hostile. But that can change if somebody thinks that what they're doing is too onerous or egregious. So I would suggest that you guys probably know better than me, and your counsel probably knows better than me how you want to handle it. But there's a number of ways that you could. Okay, let's see here. At Hoeg Law, does the U.S. government have to obey? I just answered that, so we're doing well. I got that one. At Hoeg Law, found you through the LawTube chain of lovely folks. Loki is adorable. I will tell my daughter. She will be so happy to hear you say that. Just wondering how much you knew about the Amber Heard and Johnny Depp case before you started the streams and how your opinion has changed. So I think I gave this framework really at the top, like the day one pre-show stream. But I knew that he had lost the Sun case. I knew why. I didn't know any of the details of the evidence presented. I didn't know anything that was floating around. And going into the case on Alita's stream, what I decided was I would be a legally minded juror, that I would only be reacting to things that were presented in court and evaluating them as such, because I thought that was useful for the panel, because most of the panelists have some understanding of the depositions or the outside documentation. And, Alita has a lot of experts on there, et cetera, et cetera. So when we do that, that's really the tack that I take. And so I looked at it and said, well, this is a tough defamation case because, for those of you that don't know the details, that's based on a Washington Post article at the end of 2018. And the lines in that article aren't obviously defamatory. I'll say that. They aren't clearly defamatory. You don't have a line that says, Johnny Depp beat me in 2015. You don't have a line like that, which is what you'd be looking for a silver bullet to say, I can prove that didn't happen. Hopefully. Proving a negative is hard if you're on that side of things and you want to make a defamation claim. Instead, it's by implication. It's a bunch of lines that don't obviously lead to a defamatory case, and that's what I said on day one. I said, well, those are the statements we're fighting about. It's a harder case than I would have assumed to actually get to this point in time. But coming in at the end of Johnny Depp's case, he might have a day left of witnesses. He might have less. I would say that he presented a very strong case as to how essentially the situation is not as it was portrayed, kind of holistically, broad strokes, in the Washington Post. And so when we look at that, I think I've currently given Johnny Depp a 75% chance of winning right now before Amber Heard's case, so that's going to come down. But that's certainly higher than I would have said just sitting there on the first day. So I appreciate the question. Certainly gone up. They've presented a good case. It's not a case that is ironclad. It's not a slam dunk kind of case. So I don't know that I'll ever go higher than like a 75% chance, because you have to have unanimity among your jury members, and it really only takes one person to say, I believe Amber Heard, and then to look at the various evidence and say at bare minimum that there's a muddy middle and they're crazy Hollywood celebrities, and I'm not willing to grant a defamation win on these grounds. So thank you for the question. I see blue hearts. I see purple and blue hearts. Those are the signs of both Alita at Legal Bites, the blue hearts, and purple is Emily D. Baker. If you haven't followed her, check her out. I do warn you, she curses a fair bit more than we do here in Virtual Legality. But if you like that, she's a fantastic analyst and one of my favorite people in LawTube. At Hoeg Law, do you think the Xbox deal to acquire Activision will get approved by the United States, or do you think it will be rejected? I'm concerned since the Wall Street Journal. Thought I answered this one. Maybe I'm just scrolling around endlessly. But I will say one thing in correction here, because I think a lot of outlets report this wrong. The FTC doesn't approve things. The FTC or the DOJ, the United States in general, just kind of lets things go. Just kind of says, all right, if we've passed this amount of time before we can say anything, you can close your deal. But don't be surprised if we sue you 3 years later. Or as you can see, many, many, many years later in the case of Facebook and the FTC now trying to unwind their acquisition of Instagram and WhatsApp, I believe. And so the U.S. doesn't approve things, doesn't give you a green light, doesn't give you a waiver for any worries that you might have in the future. They just say, all right, we're not going to do anything right now. So that's distinct from approval. To me, it's a big deal to a lot of these companies that are operating. I talked about the 350. I linked the podcast. Yeah, I think I scrolled around in various places. Hey, Hoeg. There's new reports coming in that WB Discovery might sell off some studios and Xbox might be interested in some. Would Xbox be able to buy 1 or 2 studios during the Activision deal? This might be a video next week. A lot of people ask me about this. So right now, the Activision deal is the biggest in gaming history by a huge magnitude. And they want to get it through. It's a very important acquisition for them. They've committed to just under $70 billion to get it done. And so if they do anything more while they're being evaluated on competition concerns, that's going to raise a few eyebrows. Now, if a perfect deal falls in their lap, if they think it's just a great match, they're not asking for too much money, or the other people aren't bidding against them, whatever, would Microsoft roll the dice? They might. It really depends on the deal terms. But it would have, at least on the margins, a negative ramification for their ability to get the Activision deal through. Doesn't mean that it kills the deal. Does mean that it's slightly more likely to potentially get challenged as they look to be a consolidator that folks like the FTC would be concerned about. So will they do it? I don't know. We don't know behind the scenes what that kind of sales process looks like. Although I will say the rumors are very, very credible because Warner Brothers Discovery has changed ownership hands and they're looking to divest of all sorts of stuff. The reason you saw CNN Plus go under as fast as it did was not just because of its horrid ratings when it came out, but also because the ownership group changed and they said, we're not even interested in this business model. We don't want to chase all of that bad money with good money, so just cut it off right now. And it might turn out that they're not in the business of doing video games. And they don't want to be in the video game business. So that makes a whole lot of sense to me. Will they do it? Depends on what they think they can get for their money. There are strong rumors WBD, sale of WBIE, can MS buy Rocksteady and NRS while the ABK deal is pending? Okay, so same question. The answer is they could try. Anything more than $100 million is going to get review. And if that review comes in at the same time that the Activision review is pending, well, then the FTC is going to have some thoughts about it. Like I said, on the margins, a little bit lower chance of succeeding. At Hoeg Law, I do see super chats. I'm going to get to them. If Microsoft were to attempt to buy Ubisoft, do you think it will take as long to either get approved or shut down as the ongoing Activision Blizzard deal? Well, Ubisoft's an interesting case. Ubisoft is a European company with a public presence. And so, excuse me. All right, I'm going to take a few more questions. I'm definitely going to hit the super chats, and then we're just going to have to see what we do. I do have to raise up my voice a little bit for that 200th episode of Bitcast that I talked about happening tomorrow. So I apologize if I have to cut this a little bit short. But suffice to say, Ubisoft is a bigger company to eat because of what it's been through. It's already fended off a hostile takeover than some of like the offshoots that you might be able to buy directly from Warner Brothers. So yeah, that would have the same kind of effect in terms of lowering the chances of an Activision deal smoothly sailing through. Let me hit those super chats and see if I can pop back up for everything else here. Well, Peggy Cole with $20 wants to send Emily Baker purple hearts and Alita blue hearts. Thank you so much. That is very, very generous. Those are two great people. You are very generous to support my channel like that. I am very, very thankful to all you just fantastic folks who've been following LawTube, who've been following the trial, and have been very, very supportive of me and this channel. If you have seen this channel grow as much as it has, in the last 3 weeks. A lot of that is people coming and checking out the content here from that trial. And that's obviously very heartwarming to me to see more of that uptake. It's very heartwarming to me to see Alita go to 150,000. She deserves it and more. And so it's just been a really good, really proud time for me, for the channel, for LawTube, for Alita. I think we're doing some good stuff over there and treating, like I said, salacious bits with an air of seriousness and hopefully entertaining education. That is really what we stand for here. Reasonable minds can differ. Reasoned disagreement helps you grow. And hopefully we're doing that at all times. So thank you so much for the support. Justin Schwacke with a $10 super chat. Thank you so much. Two-part question. How likely would a lawyer called for jury duty be to make it through selection? Very unlikely. And how do you think a lawyer serving on a jury would change the way a jury deliberates? Pretty substantially. So the reason that the answer in the first question is pretty unlikely is exactly because the answer to the second question is very substantially. A lot of the times, if you're looking at jury selection or litigation in general, you may or may not, but likely not, want one person to just be able to domineer a jury. And so with the title lawyer, with an understanding of laws, a jury is more likely, at least the theory goes, to go and say, oh, well, this person's a lawyer. We should listen to them as kind of the default. And so that lawyer has a lot of extra sway. It's like a super vote in the jury. And a lot of the times you don't want that to happen. They also are going to bring their own biases to play as to how these laws work, what these elements say, the jury instructions on the whole, how the attorneys are operating, what the judge just did, how objections are answered. And so for the most part, you'll have almost no chance of getting on a jury like that. At least that's been my experience. I have made it about 2 minutes into voir dire and was excused. So that's been my experience of late in Southeast Michigan. So thank you very much for the question. Thank you very much for the generosity in the super chats. I am going to try to hit a few more questions here and then call it if and when my voice just finally gives out. Gecko Gamer with a €5 super chat, and it's not showing me these green ones for some reason, so I apologize for that. Any games you are hoping to see this year? For me, it is Victoria 3 and Kerbal Space Program 2. Those are good choices. What am I looking forward to in the rest of the year? Well, Hoeg House, if you don't know, we're very much looking forward to Splatoon 3, which recently got a release date in, I want to say, the first week of September, which my daughter was crestfallen about because she was hoping it was summer as Nintendo had promised. And I said, well, technically it's summer. And she has the, I think, very lucid argument that says, after I am back in school, it is not the summer. So she feels disappointed about that September date. Nintendo, if you can do anything about that, if you're watching this particular live stream, let me know. And if you can move that Splatoon 3 date up, I would get a big win here in Hoeg House. But we're very much looking forward to that one. I'm very interested in seeing what Starfield is and whether or not I will like it. Obviously, Bethesda, at bare minimum, has a long history of very involved, very interesting RPGs, even if they tend to be maybe a little buggy on the open world. And I'm very interested in science fiction. So we'll see. We'll see if that game is any good. Can we get a Loki cam? We do have a closed circuit Loki cam for especially when my daughter goes on like vacation or otherwise leaves the house. I don't think we'll be broadcasting the life of Loki onto the internet, but I appreciate the request. I'm glad you all love Loki so much. Let's see here. I don't know quite where I left off. Let's start here at Hoeg Law. When monopolies are involved, how does the government force a single company to turn into two different companies, considering you're starting from one set of leadership? No, what is that? No Loki camera. That was my wife, ladies and gentlemen. Considering you're starting from one set of leadership. Well, breaking up companies is something that the United States government has a history of doing. You probably know the Bells got broken up. That would all be a big tangle of things that would be involved with whatever a consent decree would say, however you're trying to appease the Department of Justice or the Federal Trade Commission. And what that would look like would be interesting. But I don't think realistically, when we talk about video games and tech combinations, we're talking about substantial divestitures of switching things and assets and moving things around like that. So it's probably a hypothetical we don't need to worry about right now. But if it were to happen, I would definitely talk about it more in depth. It's essentially figuring out logistical problems on a grand scale with breaking up companies. At Hoeg Law, how do you spell the name of the channel owner for Bitcast? Ains, A-I-N-S. I didn't see it on the channel and can't quite hear clearly enough. Ains. A fantastic person. We've been doing great work growing that. We've had our first kind of 1,000-view videos on those episodes pretty recently, so we're growing. It's going to be fantastic. In my opinion, it's the best kept secret on the internet. We're having wonderful conversations there. We have a tremendous IGN reviewer as part of the panel. We have me, who I obviously feel tremendous about myself. We have Ains, who's fantastic. And it's just going to be a lot of fun for people to check it out, I think. So please do drop in tomorrow at 11 a.m. Eastern. Can you explain what happens when regulators in some countries authorize a transaction, others want to block it? I think I have. So I think I did answer that one. At Hoeg Law, what do you think about the leaker who possibly broke NDA about Starfield? I haven't seen it. Yeah, Starfield is undoubtedly under pretty stringent confidentiality requirements, whether that's a formal NDA or not. But it's fantastic to see leaks on this kind of thing that I'm very, very interested in. So I'll probably check it out after this stream is over. Thanks for flagging it for me. I don't think anything about it except I want to check it out. And I didn't sign an NDA, so I certainly can. Let's see here. What else we got here? I'm gonna need to give some people some mod powers in this if we keep having more and more concurrent viewers. So I'm very thankful for that as well. I was wondering about the bit about was this document prepared contemporaneously? I answered that one. I wanted to ask how you ended up being in a Linus Tech Tips Tech Longer video. I was pleasantly surprised to find you in such an unlikely channel. Well, the interesting thing about that is I was contacted for that about, it might be more than a year ago. And I gave that interview, and then that kind of got swept up in some other stuff that was happening at the channel. I thought that project was dead when he released it. But you'd probably also be surprised about what other interviews and channels I've already given content to. But you never know when those things are going to come to fruition. And it's always exciting and surprising to see them come out. Thank you so much for the kind words. I thought that video, even though there was a little editorializing, that's perfectly all right when it's your own channel, that I might otherwise disagree with. I thought in terms of the people I've given quotes to or interviews to, he was fantastic of using what I said in the right context to what I said. So I thought that video was very, very useful. And of course, it's wonderful to see that many people watch a video where I can get that good information out, because at the end of the day, that's what drives me. I love these super chats, and it helps support the fact that I can do this without feeling like I'm sacrificing my family's lighting or food to spend so much time doing this kind of thing. But I really, really love just making those corrections, making sure people understand what's happening a little bit better. So thank you for that question. At Hoeg Law, if a potential witness has only been deposed by one of the sides, can they actually testify? So I think you'd have a fight, but yes, that would be something that would be fought over in motions. And I think you've heard from the other panelists on the live stream that it can often be struck down effectively that they won't be allowed to testify, but it'd be facts and circumstances based on motions, based on importance, based on exactly why one side or the other didn't get to testify. For example, if one side just refused to schedule it, they're not going to get some kind of benefit for not doing that. So it always comes down to those kinds of discussions. I talked about WB. See you at the Bitcast. Thank you so much, Jayhawk. We talked about LawTube. At Hoeg Law, hi, Richard. Really appreciate your commentary and how you take legal speak and make it understandable to us regular folk. Makes law far more interesting. That's the dream. So I very much appreciate that comment. Thank you so much. Hey, Hoeg. How are you feeling about the Lions draft? As a Packers fan, I think it looks great. I'm very jealous of Jameson Williams. I hope the Lions break out this year. My entire life, I've hoped the Lions would break out. They drafted Aiden Hutchinson, who was the star player for my Michigan Wolverines this last year, which is awesome. I love Aiden Hutchinson, and he has just a tremendous amount of leadership and drive. I will say what I tweeted, which is I'm always kind of wary of one of my teams drafting the hometown hero, because it seems unlikely that the best possible person they could have drafted is just so happens to be the hero player from down the street. But I hope Agent Aiden Hutchinson is the best. And while I'm thrilled to see him on the Lions, I'm also mildly terrified for him because the Lions tend to eat up talent and kill it and spit it out. So we'll see how it goes. At Hoeg Law, Amber's lawyer asked for more money as negotiations continue. Does this show bad faith? No intention to settle. I don't know if it's bad faith, because some things could be happening in discovery. We just don't know behind the scenes. But it definitely shows that they don't intend to settle. I already answered Loki Cam. My wife going, huh? I was like, no, we're not broadcasting Loki onto the internet. Blizzard was a big part of my childhood, and so it's been painful watching them fall. In your opinion, will the sale bring back the old Blizzard, a company for gamers by gamers? No. No. Blizzard is never going to have that kind of independence again. But that doesn't mean that it won't be great again. So it'll be different if it's under Microsoft's umbrella, but it's probably not just going to be the Blizzard of old. We can hope for a new Blizzard that is as exciting and fun as it used to be, but it won't be the same. At Hoeg Law, just wanted to get your take on the Bethesda leaker, which I didn't know about. I will check out after this video. At Hoeg Law, can someone who hasn't been deposed by both sides testify? I answered that. At Hoeg Law, my kid is finishing his L2, that's the second year of law school at LSU, wants to do contract law. Any advice on that, or just in general? Enjoy it. Law school is fun. I really enjoyed law school. If you're getting done with 2L, then you're probably going to either work at a nonprofit or potentially quasi-clerk or real clerk, or work in your summer program at a law firm. So enjoy that too. The practical knowledge of working in one of those over the 2L summer, enormously important, because law school is fantastic, but it doesn't really teach you how to practice law. So enjoy it. All right, and I'm going to check for other super chats. I apologize for any other questions I missed. I'm just getting done with my throat here. And I do have one or two left, which is very, very cool. Very generous of you all. Thank you so much. Mama Dean, $5. Appreciate all the law tubers. They're great. Started out watching EB, Emily Baker, and now because of Legal Bites, I have a whole world of law tubers to watch and support. That is very, very nice of you. Very generous. Thank you so much for popping in here. And Gio Rio for 10 euros. Horizon Forbidden West was indeed amazing, and Lego Star Wars is lots of fun. Indeed, even with not having kids. Oh, yeah. I like playing it with my kids. I'm playing it a lot with myself. But question, doesn't the jury witness by exiting just court the change outside of public opinion? Okay, hold on. I don't know. I don't know that question. Doesn't the jury witness by exiting just court the change outside of public opinion? I apologize. I can't make heads or tails of that. But I will tell you, Johnny Depp is very concerned with the court of public opinion. We saw that in a couple of those Inside Edition clips yesterday. Can I post the link to the Linus Tech Tips video? I have a playlist for crossovers, I think I call it, where I appear on other places or otherwise I'm doing other things. I should have included it there. I will check on that. I should make a list of the things I'm supposed to check on after this live stream. But yeah, it's a fantastic video. Thank you, everybody. I'm sorry my throat is giving out. I would love to do like another half hour or hour with you. And I appreciate so much all of this support across this channel, across Alita's, across Twitter discussions, across Activision Blizzard discussions, across all of this. I cannot realistically thank you enough. You're all in here. We got 177 people watching me chat about all these various things, and that is just so wonderful. So thank you so much. If you want, share this around. I think we're doing really good work here. I think we're doing great work at Legal Bites. I think we're doing great work across a whole bunch of different platforms, including Season Gaming, Bitcast. Come join me tomorrow at 11 a.m. Hopefully, I'm going to rest my voice a little bit, maybe have some tea with some lemon or honey and what have you. But just know that I really can't do this without support from folks like you. Through Utreon and Patreon, yes, great, absolutely wonderful. But also just you guys telling us, we're doing well. We're getting through on the issues of importance here. And it does mean so much. So thank you again. And I'll see you on the next episode of Virtual Legality. Hopefully I will see you over at the Bitcast tomorrow at 11 a.m. And you know where I'll be next week. And Alita hopefully is sleeping for like all of Saturday and Sunday because she is the hardest working lawyer on YouTube right now. And she definitely deserves your likes and subscribes. Thanks again, folks. And I'll see you very, very shortly.